Let's talk about loss in Chainsaw Man. Tatsuki Fujimoto is a man with a deep infatuation for cinema. With countless references, mentions, and appraisals for film and TV, it's clear he holds this visual form of storytelling close to his heart. Enough so that many characters within Chainsaw Man can be related back to the media that inspired him. Power's personality and characterization pull from the traits of Eric Cartman from South Park, Makima a clear reflection of Haruka from Fooly Cooly, and Denji and Pochita's relationship influenced by the friendship of Finn and Jake from Adventure Time. But Fujimoto's adoration for cinema runs thicker than mere inspiration. There's an ardent fascination in knowing what makes a story tick, understanding what brings out the deepest of connections and emotions from its audience, to play on the expectant and give them the unconventional. And in Chainsaw Man's case, Fujimoto picks and pulls at the heartstrings of readers by exploring the many depictions of loss through its candor approach of constant death. It makes sense, with Fujimoto being so heavily influenced by cinema, that death would feel like a main character in the roster, because death in literature is an omnipresent occupant forever lingering, appearing in many iconic scenes in cinema, whether swift, heartbreaking, shocking, or loving. Death's presence is constant. However, despite Chainsaw Man's aptitude for notoriously quick deaths and breakneck pacing, it's through viewing the story from Denji's perspective do we witness the horrors of being at the epicenter of unceasing loss. To withstand the suffocation loss brings is, in itself, much scarier and crueler than death. To quote the novel Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami, death exists, not as the opposite, but as a part of life. Because in Chainsaw Man, death is the impact, but loss is the permanent hauntings for those still living. Within semiotic terms, when the word loss is denoted, death is primarily the connotation. That said, in Chainsaw Man, the affiliation of loss can be found in the repeated themes of losing something, not just someone. Throughout the manga, Denji is continuously compared to a dog, an animal deemed obedient, protective, loyal, and moreover, compliant to their master. And Denji is deemed a stowaway from the start, hunting for scraps of food whilst indebted to the Yakuza after his father's death, a kicked puppy waiting for affection and a home. And Makima's introduction is what domesticates his behaviour. Like any owner dangling a treat to a puppy, Denji snatches at the opportunity, the first allowance of affection purloining the last remains of self-control, summarising the relationship built between Makima and Denji, the possessor and the submissive. It's bitter irony, Denji surrendering free will of his own accord to the control devil herself without her powers ever being used. The ultimate plan on manipulation to a teen dyer of basic human rights, who is excessively willing to do anything for the essentials of food and shelter, leading to the ultimate question: to what extent does obedience become loss of control? Towards the epilogue of Chainsaw Man, Denji realises the extent of Makima's manipulation, how the trust he misplaced never even existed, but was a mirage of faux affection, not for Denji, but Chainsaw Man. Denji is invisible to the eyes of many, whilst his other persona takes forth the fame of a hero. He's never made choices for himself. Independence snatched away again and again, obedience ordered, death threatened, continuous punishment and reward, a never-ending toxic cycle. It's through the recurring instances of violence and death, acts so gruesome and unfiltered, that the young age of Denji is often overlooked. After all, he's a 16-year-old boy thrown into the pits of never-ending hell and cruelty, the defining reason for him succumbing to the role of a dog, to be rid of the feelings of fault, guilt, and pain, handing over the freedom of his own life, letting the numbness from loss of control feel like a small blessing for a fraction of time, whilst always chained to the power of others. Because Denji loses so many in such short time, and readers even more so, with Denji's mother and father out of the picture from chapter 1, to losing Pochita, his closest and first friend, to a literal blow to the heart that is Power and Aki's deaths only chapters apart, concluding with the final death of his manipulator of whom he still holds dear. Throughout Chainsaw Man, Denji is a silent harbinger of death and a sole survivor of loss. Many suffer through the hands of devils, thousands dying from the gun devil, an island community dying at the hands of Angel, Aki losing his family and rotting with the burden of guilt and revenge, to Kishibe losing an old friend of whom he trained with. There is no reprieve, no forgiveness nor second chances. Himeno expressed the matter that most who join as devil hunters enter with an early expiry date. Only those crazy or numb to pain survive the terrors that devils unleash. Death is to be expected in this line of work, as well as biting mockery. To defeat a devil means one must enact a contract with a devil, a sense of ridicule, to honour and abide by a demon's bidding, sacrificing parts of the body, sight, years of life. Whatever they decree, a hunter must offer. Ultimately, Aki's life grants the worst of endings. To have a future so miserable, short-lived and removed of happiness nor retribution, that a devil disregards a contract through sacrifice, but sadistic entertainment. To watch the downfall of Aki's last few weeks of living, observing the humane characteristics in forfeiting years of life to a devil, beings he once loathed, after already shortening his life through avenging Himeno, a loss of a close friend. But the most crucial depiction of loss, disregarding death itself, is a loss of conviction and motivation as a result of endless suffering. Having spent years training, witnessing multiple murders and lacking a normal life to hunt for the devil that killed his family, Aki's conviction for revenge had been unwavering. It's heartwarming then, to see this conviction crack under the affection he grew towards power and Denji, letting go of the vindictive emotion that carried him for so long, and allowing the warmth of an unconventional family that two dummy fiends were able to reignite in his life. It may have been a loss of conviction, but a fulfillment of love. And this love carries on through Denji. Having lost both Aki and power, and his own loss of conviction in fighting, does it take the words and reminder of power's existence to slaver an ounce of determination in making Denji's life have meaning? It's an old sentiment that through continuing to survive, do the lives of those lost still carry on. As deaths are swift in Chainsaw Man, the aftermath lingers, but the horrific scenes themselves happen quickly and without mercy. It's what makes for a variety of reactions to death, even more so from the perspective of devils, whose ideology doesn't comprehend the emotion of bereavement nor the understanding of loss from the start of the narrative. With Denji being a hybrid devil and human, it's understandable his connection to humanity allows for compassion to be felt easier than for other devils in the manga. We learn from Power the ignorance towards coping mechanisms of loss, and indifference to the way she depicts Denji's process in remembering Pochita's sacrifice, as her devil instincts see death as just death, nothing more. And that's not so different to Angel's perspective either, to view humans as lesser beings than devils and to suffer. Though it's difficult to know if his viewpoint may have been manipulated as a result of Makima's ruling. His thought process towards the simplicity of dying is a constant discussion in his scenes, to wish for death as a means of peace, as escapism from the beck and call he finds himself bound to by the devil hunters, as his skill is that of a curse, to enact loss of life, or time of living to be exact. It's perhaps this power he uses continuously that influences the nonchalant approach of death, seeing loss as an inevitable not worth fearing, but inviting. Denji does somewhat follow this approach. On several occasions, his lack of empathy towards other humans is a recurring matter, a lack of conviction to save those just because they're human, and an unbothered nature when discussing the death of previous teammates. From his perspective, of a life enriched through the means of survival only, his indifference is somewhat understandable. A grey morality, sure, but he hasn't known anything different during childhood. It's through reluctantly befriending Power, tolerating the presence of Aki and surrounding himself with those not wanting him dead on sight, do you see a slow shift in his ideology. Even though it's presented within a heartless and mocking fashion, the death of Himeno and his lack of emotional response makes him question his own ethics and lack of empathy regarding loss. And this self-reflection enables the beginnings of humility. Watching him save people he would have previously lacked care for, and even finding guilt in the many lost due to Reza's killing rampage in finding him. He shows a growth in understanding the value of people's lives, and what it truly means to lose someone he was so close to feel the pain in the lack of their presence, and even more hauntingly in Denji's case, knowing Aki's passing was by his own hand. Death is inescapable. It's bound to happen to everyone, and there's no true escape of the inevitable. Power starts the manga with these very thoughts that so many share. but for a character like Power, of whom I previously mentioned also lacked empathy towards the ideals of loss, to grow so close to a gross, smelly and boob-obsessed teenager is perhaps one of my favourite unorthodox examples of the power of friendship, all puns intended. The manga doesn't end with Power saved or a particularly happy ending between the two, and yet, seeing two characters who first started the manga with no tolerance towards people's lives become so intertwined in their love for another, leading to the salvageable rescue of Denji's life and a promise of reunion and friendship, was Fujimoto at his best. It circles the beginning of the manga. Both Pochita and Power's sacrifices resemble the ideals of sacrifice with love, and Denji's growing appreciation in continuing his own life for the sake of honouring the opportunity both gave to him, and learning to appreciate the companionships he will continue to make in life. As the relationships built within the series are the turning points towards Denji's progression, but also a gateway into small joys or heartfelt scenes juxtaposed to a cruel world, Fujimoto is able to highlight those fractions of happiness, moments that express the humanity in a loving makeshift family despite the high odds of death. For example, the initial occurrence of disobedience from Denji to Makima is because of his relationship with Power. It shows the maturation in his decisions, to deny the chance of a holiday with Makima of which he desperately wishes to attend, and instead considering the well-being of Power. The aftermath of the Darkness Devil caused signs of PTSD, leaving her frightened beyond belief and acting very out of character for a girl normally so bold and daring. It's through choosing to lose a perfect opportunity with Makima to support Power do we slowly see the cognitive decisions and protective behaviour ignite in Denji's growing heart, making the loss of Power feel all the more horrible to experience. Furthermore, the first glimpses of happiness from Aki were from something as stupid as kicking the balls of the guy who killed Himeno, because Denji encouraged the joys of simple revenge that Aki had never experienced, but always held in. Because Aki is too kind for the life of a devil hunter. He feels defeat, and cries from despair like any normal human would. Despite the countless deaths that would become desensitized to others, Aki feels the blow of every loss. And his growing fondness of Denji and Power encapsulates his character. He's incredibly selfless, except that considerate personality is the ruin of his life. He reimagines the snowball fight with his brother moments before his death, with the image of Denji instead. Someone who wormed his way into a familial and brother-like status in his life makes for scenes of heartbreak slathered in trauma and the first crushing reality of suffering via death that Denji first-handedly experiences. As Tatsuki Fujimoto pulls no punches in regards to main character deaths, we're able to see how loss in itself is so frequent in Denji's life. The relationships we build with others is a silver lining of happiness, bringing joy to one's life no matter how small or large of a participant, and yet that connection is what brings upon the weight of grief in differing ounces. I don't know whether we'll see the Lost Devil or Death Devil in Chainsaw Man Part 2, but if a devil's power is in its name and the consumption of humanity's fears, then which would be the greater evil? Because the story left me with one sullen question. Are people more scared of the eventuality of death, or the idea of losing others more? Thank you for watching the video, and I want to give a massive shout to my patrons for allowing this video to happen by helping me reach my first Patreon goal. If you'd like to support the channel and would like more videos like this, then Patreon is a fantastic way to help me out whilst I make such heavily edited videos. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.